trend line, for the short-term trend line I'm talking about in this video, for the daily chart, and that's connecting the high here, this peak here, and the peak right here that we just slightly overthrew that level. You turned off of the 400 period moving average, you turned off the 100. This is the 4-hour time frame. If we can clear that level, that's going to be short-term bullish for Bitcoin if we get a Fed pivot rally immediately. If we get disappointment because the Fed only goes a quarter or whatever, maybe their projections for 2024 and 2025 are don't meet expectations and they disappoint, whatever. Or if we get a 50 basis point cut, maybe we see Bitcoin break out immediately. But right now, we have the 50 period up to the 200, bound to cross it. We already have parameter in positive territory. It's got to remain that way. You got to be able to get above that 400 and stay above it. Here, we ended up losing it and dropping back below the 5200. We had a bullish cross at the 5200. It failed. Did we see the same thing here? Break the downward trend line and then have some staying power. So again, we've got to turn these signals around to bullish, and then they got to stay that way. Here they try to turn bullish, bring parameter in positive, couldn't stay that way. So you got to have staying power. Okay, whether we get a bigger pullback or whether we try to break out right now, we'll see. But eventually, again, I think we're going to the 68, 69,000 area. For that, you've got the resistance zone directly overhead, the 70, 71,000 area. Again, I don't think Bitcoin's going to make new highs. I think it's peaked. I do think it's in a topping process. But here, if that 50 can get above it, price has to stay above the 200. We'll be watching. If you get a breakout, then that very well could be the case. Bitcoin starts going parabolic up towards 68 or 69,000. Even if the stock market sells off with the Fed, if they're disappointed, if we don't get 0.5% cut, I think we'll get a rally to new highs. We had an intraday, we moved to 1 point above the July high today on an intraday basis. We get a pullback, Bitcoin gets a pullback again. Eventually, I think Bitcoin comes up into this area, and we get this larger divergence between the S&P 500 and Bitcoin. We already have a divergence. I think we'll see multiple point divergence form as we've seen at other times in history. If I'm wrong about the rally and we start taking out the 50-week moving average, Bitcoin's average price, we start losing the lower boundary of the channel, then Bitcoin's in some serious trouble and support's going to be breaking, and then my rally scenario would not play out. I mean, I'm just telling you what I think. This is why I think that's going to be. I think S&P is going to move higher over the next few weeks, peak in October, early to mid-October, and I think Bitcoin late September, early to mid-October will peak, and it will reverse. I think the top is already in for Bitcoin. I think it's going to finish forming this divergence with the S&P 500. Historically, we've had the rally for about 3.5 weeks through the Fed pivot, and then the market crashes. Bitcoin will likely do the same. Please support the channel with the link directly below. That allows me to be able to provide you this information. If you like the chart, you like the indicators, let me know that by supporting the channel. I do need to hear from you in order to make it work. A lot of time and effort to do this. Showing you the charts I look at constantly every day. I need to hear from you. If you have any sponsors, I just put it all out there for free and just ask that you partner with me and support the channel. The money made on YouTube is through sponsors. I don't choose to do that, so I do need your help. Ad revenue is very, very little. If you could take the time to help out, I would really, really appreciate it. I thank you for your consideration for that. Just follow the link below to take you to a secured site, and you can donate any amount you want. Bitcoin signals were turning bullish back over here. We saw momentum begin to turn bullish. We saw the cloud turn back to bullish up here. We're trying to see things turn, but we got the short-term topping signal here. These signals have been absolutely amazing, as well as the bottoming signals. Again, they just mark momentum, turns in momentum. The momentum here is in positive territory, so even if Bitcoin pulls back, I still think we're coming up here. If we turn off of the trend line right here that we went up to, again, we could still pull back and try to break it, or do we try to break it immediately with the Fed and start going parabolic? We'll see which way it plays out. But again, I believe a bottom is already formed here, or is forming, that would still be under construction, and we'll see what happens at this trend line. You clear it, then that would be a sign of strength for Bitcoin. You get rejection here, that would be a short-term sign of weakness. I still think we're coming up here by late September or early to mid-October. Momentum here with the impulse line still hanging in there, still bullish. Cloud's still bullish, the ribbon's still bullish. As long as we don't start dropping below Bitcoin's average price and taking out the low over here, then Bitcoin could still make its way up towards 68, 69,000, 70 or 71,000 for a test. Look here, the momentum line is still bullish at this point, but we did get some short-term topping signals here. We got this pullback, and now we're seeing the momentum turn back to bullish as of our Tuesday session. The momentum line never flipped to bearish. Balance of power still positive. The cloud in the background flipped back to green. So again, can we clear the trend line, get the breakout with the Fed right now, or pull back, build momentum, and do it? I still think we're coming up into this level. Now as we get the Fed pivot rally immediately and get a breakout of the trend line along with Nasdaq, or do we pull back having gotten a rally ahead of the Fed pivot, building momentum, then having it happen afterwards? We'll see how it unfolds. The market be disappointed by a 1/4 point cut. Will it get what it wants and get the 0.5% cut and celebrate and break the trend lines? We'll see how it unfolds. Bitcoin stalling at the trend line of resistance. We'll be watching that tomorrow with the Fed announcement. Okay, we just had the close of Bitcoin for the Tuesday session. The Wednesday session has now begun, where we're going to get the Fed pivot. Again, is the market and Bitcoin going to be disappointed by just a 1/4% cut? Will the Fed do 0.5%? Give the market and the crypto community what it wants, 0.5%. So if we get 0.5%, Bitcoin could try to rally through this trend line of resistance. If we see crypto market and the market, stock market begin to sell off, then we could turn down off of these levels. I still think we're going up into this resistance zone area, this trend line, this resistance zone, and right here, again, probably 68 or 69,000. But I think that you could still pull back. Again, a push above this level is a sign of strength. A reversal off of it is a sign of weakness. We had this big rally of 5%. It fizzled out, and we only gained 3.61%. You know, you had Larry Fink go on CNBC and say Bitcoin is digital gold again, and you know, the Moon Boys and their followers started slapping each other on the back and going, ooh, ooh. It's a bunch of propaganda. It's a bunch of nonsense, okay? We're turning off the 100 period moving average. We're turning off the trend line. You get above it, you can go higher. You got to be able to stay above it and clear the resistance zone to be bullish. Can't do that. There's no reason to be long-term bullish on Bitcoin. Bitcoin follows the 100 period moving average. Bitcoin's not hard to understand. Comes with its own cryptocurrency outline, the 100 period moving average. That's this pink line right here that we just got rejection at. Now, again, it clear. I think Bitcoin eventually going to go up here. I told you Bitcoin was in a bottoming process, and we still may pull back. Historically, with the Fed pivot, you've seen the rally. 2001, 2007, we've seen rallies. A rally ahead of the Fed pivot that may give us a pullback. And again, if you exclude the shadow here, we turned down off of it right there with Bitcoin. Tried to get back above it today with hype that we're going to have the Fed tomorrow. I should say now with the new session starting here on Wednesday. That Larry talks about how he changed his mind about Bitcoin and Bitcoin's going to change the world. And I watched the interview. A bunch of hype, okay? It's a bunch of hype. Larry Fink says, well, you know what? Michael Saylor has bought Bitcoin at the top also, okay? So that, one of my favorite Moon Boy, he posts a picture of Michael Saylor and Larry Fink every day or every other day or so. These men own so much Bitcoin. Well, so what? Saylor bought a lot of tops, holding long-term dollar cost averaging. Because Michael Saylor remains bullish doesn't mean it's going to stop Bitcoin from crashing. It didn't stop it back in 2021. Michael Saylor bought that top as well. So just keep that in mind. Michael Saylor seems like a nice guy. He's a very interesting man to listen to. I like him. I'm saying just because a billionaire, Larry Fink, holds so much Bitcoin doesn't mean anything. It's all about support and resistance, and it's all about clearing the 100 period moving average above it, clearing resistance levels, not a bunch of hype. I'll be watching this trend line right here and be watching to see what happens. Do we get rejection at it, or do we get above it? And if so, do we get above the 100 period moving average, which disappeared on me briefly here. Chart refreshed. Here it is. And as we start the Wednesday session, Bitcoin is down 0.25%. We'll see if we clear this level or if we turn down off of it. Turning down. Nasdaq's doing the exact same thing. It tried to get above the trend line, and it turned down and closed right back below it, getting a black candlestick. So Nasdaq and Bitcoin continue to do the same thing. You got the 10 above the 20, but the 10 and 20 are still below the 50. The 50 is still below the 200 period. The green line is the 50. The black line is the 200. The 200 has started to flatten out and slightly dropping ever so slightly. Even if we get back above this level, I don't think the 50 is going to get back above the 200, and I think Bitcoin's in a larger topping process, unless the bulls can prove that it's not, and that's by clearing resistance. And again, they've been trying for 6 months to clear 69,000. They've tried 8 times. They've tried for 6 months, over 6 months, to prove that this is not a top. So far, they haven't been able to do it. The bears continue to be in control. Bitcoin bounced today. It bounced off the 20-period moving average as a 10, previously crossing above the 20. The 20 is a blue line right here. So again, we're going to be watching. Does Bitcoin pull back and then go higher up here and then crash, or does it bust up through the trend line, clear this level here, and we get more of a parabolic move? We'll see. Well, but I do think we're probably going to the 69,000 area. I do think Bitcoin will end up getting a Fed pivot rally. It might pull back first because we've had a rally ahead of the Fed pivot, so do keep that in mind. We're at the trend line of resistance, and we're getting rejection at least so far. So again, you clear this trend line, that's going to be bullish. You get rejection here, you drop back below the 50, you drop back below the moving averages, that's going to be bearish. I talked about the resistance in this area in the last few videos at great length and detail. Again, I told you I thought a bottoming process was under construction back over here. Still think that. We still might come back and test these levels, but regardless, I think we're on our way up to that 68, 69,000. You start taking out these levels low over here, then Bitcoin's in some serious, serious trouble. Historically, the stock market has rallied initially with the Fed pivot for a few weeks. I think this time will be no different. I think Nasdaq will go up and fill the gap, and I think that at 20,400, I think the S&P will move to a new high. The upper channel line, I'll link my latest video if you want to see the channels and the stuff I'm looking at and talking about the S&P and Nasdaq. I'll link that video at the end of this one. Well worth the time to understand, because the Bitcoin price and the stock market have a positive correlation. Now, if the S&P moves to a new high, either pulling back and moving to a new high or doing it immediately. We did move to a new high on an intraday basis today on the S&P, but it didn't close there. It reversed. Again, the opinion we'll see higher levels, 5750 and 6,000 on the S&P. Nasdaq will go fill the gap on 20,400, and then I think the market will top in early October to mid-October. And that's why if you want to see those charts, go watch that video. I'll link it at the end of this one. But again, say this, I really don't care which way Bitcoin goes. I could care less. I can make money up or down. I've been playing the moves back and forth, from bullish to bearish, over and over. Signals have been absolutely amazing. But again, you have a bearish arrangement of the moving averages. You have turning off the trend line in the 100 period. I think it will eventually, though, move back above this level, and people go, oh, it's a higher low and a higher high. And even if we pull back, it's a higher high. And you'll end up getting another lower high over here. Unless we see the bulls be able to change things, it's going to be really hard to have a bull market with the recession. We know that recession is 3 to 6 months away. We know this from the unemployment rate with the 3-month moving average, predicting a recession, triggering the Psalm rule, which hasn't been wrong. It's been right for decades. Okay, not going to be wrong this time. People on CNBC with their Fed survey, oh, we're going to get a 1/4 point cut. Maybe that disappoints Bitcoin. Oh, we're going to have a soft landing, though. No, we're not. That's a bunch of propaganda from the experts in the financial media. It's propaganda. Janet Yellen 2 weeks ago, oh, no, we're going to have a soft landing. No, we're not. Really going to be, we know recession from reliable indicators like the unemployment rate with the Psalm rule and the uninverting of the yield curve. These things are reliable indicators. They're telling us we're 3 to 6 months away from recession. It's going to be really hard to have a bull market with Bitcoin. Oh no, everybody's going to pile into Bitcoin. The stock market's going to go down. That's a bunch of poppycock. The stock market and Bitcoin have a positive correlation longer term. Some kind of nonsense like they told us back at the top, oh, inflation is going to drive the stock market lower, but everybody's going to pile into the safe haven of Bitcoin. No, that didn't work out. And Bitcoin still went down. People like to spread their propaganda. And again, I'm telling you, if Bitcoin's going to be bullish, you got to get that 50 back above the 200. You got to get price breaking out. You got to get back above the 100 period moving average. and we don't have that. We have a bearish arrangement. My guess is we're coming back up here for another test, and I think that will deceive the moon boys, suck a lot of people in, and then the bottom's going to fall out late September on into early to mid-October somewhere with Bitcoin, and we're going to resume the decline. Nasdaq turning off the same trend line. It tried to overthrow it, got a black candlestick. Again, we've rallied ahead of the Fed, so you still have the 10 below the 20. Bitcoin's got the 10 above the 20 now. But again, we could see a pullback if we turn off the trend lines. If we clear them, then we can go parabolic. So you got Bitcoin and Nasdaq both have these trend lines. And again, eventually I think Nasdaq comes up to this 20,400 area. If it pulls back and then clears a trend line or clears it immediately, it goes parabolic. Whichever way, I think this is where we're coming. I think the S&P will move to a new high. We'll see if we rally with the Fed or if there's disappointment. Does the market and the crypto community boo the Fed for being less bold, less aggressive, and only giving us a quarter point cut, and the market sells off with that and then rallies, or they applaud the Fed and we see a breakout of these trend lines with the Nasdaq and with Bitcoin. We'll be watching, but again, Nasdaq has a large ABC move. I think it's going to move to a lower high and get a double top. I think that Bitcoin's already got the double top. I think it will get another lower high and diverge with the S&P 500, and I think that we'll see Bitcoin and Nasdaq come up here, test the highs, but I think we will turn back down sharply and then resume the crash with the Nasdaq here that already started back over here. Predicted Nasdaq peaked on July 11th after the July 10th peak right there, and I warned leading up to it that a top was about to form because of the trend lines I talked about. If you want to see all those trend lines on Nasdaq and everything I was talking about, go watch a video at the end of this video. I'll link it at the end of this video. Now again, we're turning off this horizontal resistance level right here. We try to get it back above it at the highest today, turning down off the trend line, including the shadow right here and our 100 period moving average. And again, that's the pink line you see right there. Now I think Bitcoin's probably going to build momentum or try to clear it with the Fed, one or the other. But I do think that we're only going to come up to here to 68, maybe 69,000 or so. Resistance zone above that at the 70, 71,000. I don't think Bitcoin's going to be able to make a new high, but I do think it's going to get a bigger rally. I think we're going to get a Fed pivot rally. If Bitcoin comes down and loses Bitcoin's average price, this line right here, if we come back and we take out this low right here, then Bitcoin's in some serious trouble. Again, I've talked about, the moon boys keep telling us, oh, it's a bull flag. These are the same people that told us the selling was never going to happen. Never. It was never possible that this happened. We're seeing distribution. No, we were told it's a breakout. We're off to the races. Here comes 100,000. Here we go. 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 Not. And again, it's probably going to be that we take out this high to fake out all of these people and take out this resistance zone and move back up to this next level of resistance, suck in all of the people to believing, here we go, this is finally it. And then they're going to be in for a rude awakening because the bottom is likely going to fall out of Bitcoin shortly. After that, again, we're probably going to see Bitcoin peak late September, more likely though early to mid-October as far as the next counter trend. But let me be clear, I believe we peaked back in March, as I've talked about. We've gone nowhere. We've lost 1/3 of the value of Bitcoin over the 6-month period, just under 6 months at this low in August. The bear market is not done yet, and we're probably going to see Bitcoin go back and test 15,000 and probably take it out. Oh man, that is committing sacrilege in the Moonboy cult if you say something like that. Look, eventually Bitcoin's going to get a bull market, probably a massive bear market rally, forming a very, very large expanded flat I've talked about over and over again. And we'll see, can we break the trend line and do it right now? Or do we pull back maybe to the trend line right here, maybe back to a Fibonacci retracement and build momentum and then try to break the trend line? We'll be watching. But like I said, well, I went too high, but I think we're going to 68, 69,000. If we clear that, you get the resistance zone in that 70, 71,000 area, the first resistance zone. It's amazing. All over social media, people that are telling us this distribution, oh, that's not going to happen. And that we should have already been at 100,000 by now. They're the ones that are going to proclaim that, oh, it's over, but yet they told us it was never going to happen. You see what I'm saying? My signals have turned back to bullish and bearish through this whole thing. I've talked about it in my videos over and over again, going back and forth from bullish to bearish. But then we saw the weekly charts turn bearish. Again, the bulls, if they want to regain control, they got to turn the weekly charts back to bullish. If that happens, and we can clear this level, clear the high over here, stay above 69,000, never drop back below it again for the duration, somehow manage to dodge a recession, see the dollar completely collapse, which is broken out and back tested, I'm with you. But Bitcoin's not going to be able to dodge the recession, so just keep that in mind. We have these bullish divergences. We move slightly lower right here. We form these divergences. The RSI doesn't look at these shadows. So we had a bullish divergence here. We'll see if we confirm a higher low here. We might get another divergence if we try to take this low out and hit the trend line or even overthrow it. But the bullish, we got to get back above my 100 period moving average. That's that pink line we're turning off of, and this trend line. So you turn off these levels, that's bearish. You break above these levels, that's short-term bullish. Long-term bullish, not, oh, new bull market bullish, short-term bullish. So hear what I'm saying. Same bullish diversions here on the MACD. And again, it might be that we form a triple bullish divergence, come back and go a little bit lower than this low. It might be that we get a higher low and try to bounce off this trend line right here, excluding the shadow or including the shadow. So again, I'll be watching these levels. If we can clear this level with the Fed, then I'll be looking for a parabolic move for Bitcoin to go towards 68 or 69,000. It's a counter trend until proven otherwise, until the bulls can turn it around. Just a bunch of fun. If Bitcoin's so bullish, why are the signals bearish? Explain this to me. Weekly signals are bearish. As far as we're with the death cross and the 100 period, we're below it. The weekly signals are bearish. If Bitcoin's so bullish, why isn't it clearing all these levels right now? People, rather than looking at what's really going on, and again, Bitcoin's going back and forth, as I've been talking about, they'd rather live and fantasize about their mansion and all the cars they're going to own, and, than really looking and putting their due diligence into looking at what's really going on. So again, in order for me to turn back to bullish, we've got to clear these levels, stay above these levels, never drop back below them. Somehow Bitcoin manages to dodge a recession. I doubt it. You say that in the Moonboy cult, you have committed sacrilege. Bitcoin does not go down, it only goes up. Here's the channel without the horizontal resistance, and again, you can see the rejection off the 100 period in the trend line right here. Since the March high, Bitcoin has lost 1/3 of its value. It's rebounded off the lows, though. But as what I can tell you is we're in this trading range, in this channel, in this bull flag, if you will. Bitcoin is going sideways in that it's dropping below, bounced off the 100, got above it, dropped below it, tried to get above it, it failed, and then it tried to get above it, it failed, and now we're testing it. We'll probably try to get above it again. Bitcoin follows the 100 period moving average. It is that simple. You drop below the 100 period, bad things are happening. Here we tried to get above it, it failed. Drop below it, tried to get above it again, it failed, and Bitcoin collapsed. Rejection, rejection, rejection. Got above it, the selling ended. We back tested it, we bounced off of it, then we went sideways, we dropped below it, got back above it, dropped below it, we went sideways, got above it here, and we broke out, found support at it at the January low, found support at it here, it slightly violated it, but then broke it. So again, Bitcoin follows the 100 period moving average. In order to be bullish on Bitcoin, we've got to get above the 100. It's got to point upward. It's pointing downward right now. You got to stay above that 100 period. You got to break out. You got to clear the trend line. You got to clear these highs. You got to stay above them. You got to clear 69,000, which we've had 8 failed attempts to do now to try to clear it. You got to manage to dodge a recession and see the dollar collapse. The dollar is not collapsing. It's bottoming out. We know recession indicators are warning a recession is about to happen. So explain to me how Bitcoin's going to have a bull market. We have recession going on. And again, the Fed pivot historically has been bearish. Boy, everybody thinks, oh, no, we're going to have, one of my favorite moon boys, every day he talks about, hey, when Fed cuts rates, Bitcoin soars to the moon. And he shows you the rate cuts of 2020. Fed to QE infinity and beyond, rates down to nothing, and did stimulus. Not going to have that. You see, there's a little problem called inflation. Fed did that, inflation would come roaring back. Now, I'm not saying they won't do QE later. I'm not saying that they won't eventually drop rates down to nearly nothing. They do stuff like that because their policies lead to negative outcomes and they do stupid things. But as what I am telling you is that right now they can't do that, and if they did, and maybe that's why Bitcoin might sell off, is it's disappointed if the Fed doesn't do 0.5%. They do, but I'm just telling you, we got to clear that trend line I've been talking about in this video. And if so, if you believe Bitcoin's going to be bullish, you got to clear this trend line. You got to clear the 100. You got to clear 69,000, stay above it. And again, Bitcoin has failed to do so. Right now, the bears are in control. I don't want that. You know, you could throw a little hissy fit and temper tantrum. Bitcoin doesn't care. Okay, I'm telling you what has to happen for Bitcoin to be bullish. Okay, if it doesn't, then that's bearish, and eventually we'll go back and hit this trend line, and eventually take it out and go back and test the lows over here, test the lows over here. Is likely in a massive expanded flat pattern. An expanded flat happens when you sell off and you rebound back up and you go to just above this high right here, as we did, and then it fails. And then what happened is you go back down and you take out this low. That's called an expanded flat. That low is at 15,000. So that's what I think is probably going to be the case for Bitcoin. Unless the bulls could change, turn everything back to bullish and we somehow manage to dodge a recession. Oh no, we're going to have this soft landing. They're telling me, the experts are telling me on CNBC and on Bloomberg, and they're telling us we're going to, yeah, right. They say that every recession. Bunch of propaganda. So again, I expect Bitcoin's going to try to go hit 68, 69,000. We'll see if it clears the short-term trend line. And if it does, you can do it immediately. If we pull back, I still think it's going to do it. I still think Bitcoin will attempt to clear the trend line, even if it pulls back first and build momentum. But I think that Bitcoin is likely peaked over here, diverging with the S&P 500, which is what happens at Bitcoin tops and stock market tops. Go watch my video on the stock market. I'll link it at the end of this one.